Hello everyone. So the first question you are asking, why do I start from 1985? Well, the answer is simple, because I love all of the albums from 74 to 84. So I wouldn't really be able to say anything constructive towards them. I would just say that I love them, I love them, I love them. Always have, still do. So in 1985 the cracks started appearing, so I thought that that would be a good time to a good point to start. So, like I said, I had loved everything up until then, but then 1985 they released Tears Are Falling, the pre-single for the album Asylum, and I was stunned. I was amazed that is it possible for Kiss to release something that I don't like? But since I mainly love albums, so I thought that that's just a single, let's wait and see how the album turns out. And they released Asylum, and I didn't like this album. At first, the only song that I liked from this album was I'm Alive. I'm Alive was my favorite then, and always has been, and still is today. But also this album is the one that I have changed my mind the most times. I have had every kind of feeling towards this album. I have thought it was absolute garbage, and I have thought it was absolutely brilliant album. I have loved this album, and I have changed my mind about this album dozen if not dozens of times. This time it came pretty much what I expected it to be. I may have thought that I would have liked this a bit more, but in the end this came up at number 4. The song that I this time liked, how should I say it, more than I expected was Any Way You Slice It. I thought it was great, and to me the star of this album is Bruce Kulick. I think his guitar work here is absolutely spot on. Okay, the following album, Crazy Nights, was released in 1987, and at the time I don't really remember not liking this album. I wasn't appropriately enough, wasn't crazy about this, but I do remember liking this. And over the years, well, I've never thought that this was a great album. I've thought it's a decent album. Sometimes I've liked it a bit more, sometimes a bit less. I've always thought of it as like a fairly average album from Kiss. But this time I have to say that I liked it less than before. There were positive points here, like I'll fight Hell to Hold You, Hell or High Water, When Your Walls Come Down. I like those better than what I remembered. But then again, there was also there is Turn On a Night, which is it's a really fat song. It's bloated. It's awful. I don't like it. And even worse than that, this includes My Way, which really didn't like that one. Turn On a Night was like a reminder of the worst excesses of the 80s, but My Way was just awful song. Didn't like that at all. I thought it was awful, and that's why I'm surprised that this one came lower than I expected. It came up at number 10, and I have to say that this list will bring a lot of surprises. And also, if you pay attention, you will notice that the way that I value these albums, it doesn't really have like a same rules with every album. I mean, sometimes one rule makes more impression on one album and less impression on another album. But this is how I felt about these albums, and I listened to all of these albums prior to making this video. I listened to one album each day to get a really good feel how I feel about these albums, rather than doing this video based on my memory about these albums. Okay, the next album was released in 1989. which was Hot in the Shade. And prior to this album's release, my fandom had died, but I will get back to that one later on. So when this album was released, I heard this album and I didn't like this album at all. And honestly, I thought that this would have been the very bottom of my list now. But I was surprised to notice that for the first time in decades, because I had this album taped on a cassette in 1990, and I have listened to it not a lot, I have to say, really not a lot, but I have never liked this album until now. The problem with this album is the song Forever. Forever is a great song. It's clearly the best song here. It's the diamond of the album. It's head and shoulders above everything else. But then the rest of the songs, basically I did like all of the songs here. The most positive surprises were Silver Spoon and Cadillac Dreams, which include backing choir and horns respectively. And I thought that those were really good additions to the songs, even though those were quite low in the mix. But yeah, they were great additions to these songs. But overall, like, other than thinking that, okay, that's a good song, that's a good song, that's a good song, there wasn't anything really to, like, rise above the others, except for Forever. Rest of the album was very much like a even keel. But like I said, I did expect this album to become at the very bottom, but it didn't. This came up at number 9. And why I placed this above Crazy Nights was simply because I didn't think that this album includes any stinkers, unlike Crazy Nights, even though individual songs I like more on Crazy Nights than I did on here. Okay, next album, Revenge, released in 1992. Coming up to this album, the first single was God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too, and I didn't like it at all. But it was a cover song, it was done for a movie soundtrack, so I thought that, well, who cares about what they do for a movie soundtrack? They can do whatever they want for that one. Let's just hear the album. So next up came Unholy, and I thought that now that's a good song. I didn't really think it was like a great song, but I was really happy that they had found their backbone. They were now solid heavy rock band again. But it took me until the video for Domino came when I thought that, well, now we're talking. Now I'm going to buy the album. But honestly, it still took me quite some time before I bought this. But yeah, I have never really been a fan of this album, although I thought that this was the best album they had done in a long while and would do in a long while, but I have never been a fan of this album. So now when I listen to it, I like practically every song here. The least good, in my opinion, was Take It Off, but I still like that one too. I thought it was a good song, but songs like Spit, Domino, Heart of Chrome, Thou Shalt Not, Every Time I Look at You, Paralyzed, brilliant songs. I even thought that on I Just Wanna they have this vocal harmony part during the song, and I thought that that's great. Just great way to add into a song. Yeah, I thought it was great, but simply because I have had more positive feelings for Asylum than for this one, I placed this below Asylum at number 5. I have to say that I'm like not sure that was it really a wise decision to place it below Asylum, but well, that's how I did it this time. Okay, yeah, like I said, I didn't become a fan thanks to Revenge, so when this one was released, I looked at it and I saw that, okay, it includes 4 songs which were already released on Alive and Alive 2, and I thought that, yeah, I won't be needing that one. So I only bought this in 2014 when this vinyl reissue was issued. I know that many people actually think of this as the best ever live album, but yeah, to me it's Alive and Alive 2. but it's a good, solid, heavy rock, heavy metal album, so I understand where their feelings come from. To me, this is a slightly like divided into two. I think the first album here, sides 1 and 2, are brilliant, just great, with the exception of I Was Made for Loving You, which I would hope that they wouldn't have put on this album at all. Just like God Gave Rock and Roll to You, I Was Made for Loving You does not fit here at all. But other than that, I think this is, yeah, well, okay, this includes God Gave Rock and Roll to You and Star Spangled Banner, which I could do well without those, but overall, I think this is a good, solid album. So I place this at number 7. Okay, next one. Recorded in 95, released in 96, Unplugged. Going into this, I knew that this would be my number 1. I didn't doubt it for a second, and there was nothing to change my mind. I love this album through and through. Everything about this is brilliant. Love every song here. When this was released, I could say that I was completely out of picture. I didn't know that they had recorded this. I didn't know this was released. It was only later on when my brother told me that he had seen this from the TV and said that that actually works better than what you would expect. It still took me a couple of years before I bought this. But yeah, I've always liked Unplugged records, and this is no exception. I would not have thought that Kiss would work as acoustic, but it does. I think it's a great album. And looking at the track listing, Coming Home, Blaster Caster, Going Blind, Do You Love Me, Domino, Sure Know Something, World Without Heroes, See You Tonight, I Still Love You, Every Time I Look at You, 2000 Men. Just brilliant track listing here, like every Kiss fan's dream. And yeah, there is nothing negative that I can say about this album. The only thing that I approaches negative is that when I was listening to Rock Bottom, I thought that Rock Bottom works better as electric. But that's the only thing even approaching negative that I can say about this album. My number 1, clearly. And also the same year, because of the reunion of the original 4, this is actually more of a collection album, so that's why this, I was like, well, should I even include this? But I wanted to include this anyway. This is mostly a compilation from tracks from Alive and Alive 2. So do I love those tracks? Yes, absolutely, I love every one of those. This also includes 4 unreleased tracks and interview titled Kiss Tells All, and as you can expect, it's a complete lie. Practically they don't tell anything at all. There's only 2 interesting things within that interview, in my opinion. One is that the Cream magazine photo incident, and most interesting thing for me was hearing how much Peter Criss hated playing clubs and how enthusiastic he was getting back to playing arenas now. Of the 4 new songs, Room Service, Two-Timer and Let Me Know, I have read that Paul would have re-recorded his vocals for these 4 tracks, but I don't think that he recorded for the song Take Me, because when you listen to Take Me you can hear the lower quality of the recording compared to the other 3 songs. I don't know if he recorded his vocals for all 3, but in my opinion, listening to Let Me Know, when you compare the vocals between Gene and Paul, you can hear how much better sounding Paul's vocals are on it. So I believe that for that song he has re-recorded his vocals. But basically this is a compilation, and because I love both Alive and Alive 2, I'm not going to listen to a few individual songs from here. So it's hardly necessary album for me. I place this at number 12. Okay, so next album, recorded in 1995, then shelved and released in 1997. This is Carnival of Souls. When this was released, Kiss fans were already aware of this. I wasn't. I don't really even remember when did I hear about this album. I bought this album in 2008. But by that time, I knew that this was called as Kiss's grunge album. Listening to it now, I don't consider it to be a grunge album. I consider it to be really dark heavy metal album. It's really dark heavy metal. To me, this is the Elder Part 2, because this, just like Elder, doesn't sound like Kiss album at all. But I have always liked a few of the grunge bands, so coming up to this album, I didn't have problems with it, and I still don't. I like this album. I think every single song here is good. My favorite this time was Seduction of the Innocent, but songs like Master and Slave, Jungle, I Walk Alone, which is sung by Bruce, works great. Rain, It Never Goes Away, just brilliant songs. And Hate, I thought that the opening line on which Gene comes up as "Hate is what I am," I thought that that's a brilliant opening line. Just like The Cure, for example, has in 100 years they start the song with "It doesn't matter if we all die." So I thought that brilliant opening line. Yeah, never had a problem with this album. I like this album. This came up at number 6. So the next album, I was wondering, like, should I even include this album, because it's not really a Kiss album. This is Gene and Paul with session musicians. Into the Void, the A song, is the only song where the whole band is playing. Also, You Wanted the Best includes vocals by all 4 guys, so not much of a Kiss album really. Again, you could say that this doesn't really sound like a Kiss album for obvious reasons, but I think it's great. When this album was released, I had seen Kiss on their reunion tour. I had enjoyed it, but it didn't extend to this album. I didn't like when it was released. It took me many years before I bought it, didn't like it, but over the years I have learned to like this album, and especially during the last, let's say somewhere between 5 to 10 years, I have loved this, liked this album with each listens always more and more, and this time was no exception. I think it's a great album. The only song here that I'm not that crazy about is I Pledge Allegiance to the State of Rock and Roll, which is more of being enthusiastic than having a great song. And my favorites here are the songs that are least like Kiss. We Are One and Journey of 1000 Years. I think they are great songs. Also the others like Within, Dreaming, great songs. I Finally Find My Way, which is exactly the song like Peter sang during the 70s, and Peter is singing lead vocals here too. Brilliant, brilliant songs. Yeah, I love this. I can put this at number 3. Okay, which one is next? Yeah, that's the next one. So next in 2003 came up Kiss Alive 4 Symphony, and well, when I heard that they would do a recording with the full symphony orchestra, I thought that that's a good idea. Let's have something new with it. So this is a double CD, and it opens up with Act 1, which is just Kiss, 4 members playing songs: Deuce, Strutter, Let Me Go Rock and Roll, Lick It Up, Calling Dr. Love, and Psycho Circus. Then is Act 2, which is Kiss with Melbourne Symphony Ensemble, doing Beth, Forever, Going Blind, Sure Know Something, and Shandy. And I think it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They are on the Act 2, it's Kiss playing acoustic with the ensemble, so it's not full orchestra yet. But yeah, I think it's brilliant. The first disc, brilliant, love it. But unfortunately, this is 2 CDs. The CD 2 is Act 3, which is Kiss with the full Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. And it's a missed opportunity in my opinion. Having a full orchestra, you should do something which adds to the songs. Use the orchestra to the full advantage of adding something, but they don't. Great Expectations is like a perfect copy of the version from the Destroyer album. Even they have even a children's choir here. Perfect copy. I think it's great. To my surprise, the biggest surprise here to me was I Was Made for Loving You. In that song, they have the biggest advantage of the orchestra. It transforms the song the most, but it's not enough. Like rest of the set, it doesn't really do anything at all. So basically, when I say that the half of the album is great and half of the album isn't, I should place this lower, but I mean, even though the orchestra doesn't add anything, it doesn't take anything away from it either. So that's why I place this at number 8. So the next album, 2008, Sonic Boom. Again, when this album was released, I didn't like this. It took me 2 years before I finally learned to like this. And I'm not saying that I listened to it a whole lot, but after 2 years, it finally clicked with me, and I just learned to understand it. And I think it's a brilliant album. I love every single track here. There's there's variety. There's good songs. It's not like heavy rock. I mean, it's not like a heavy metal. It's a heavy rock. So in that way, it's back to the 70s or 80s without sounding like that time. It sounds like it's from 2008. Great songs, great album. I love this album. I place this at number 2. Let's take a moment also to reflect on because this is double CD and DVD version, the Kiss Classics, which is 15 old songs re-recorded. It was done for the Japanese market, and basically it's done to get the copyright money. If somebody wants to use those songs on a commercial, for example, Kiss gets the royalties from those versions. So yeah, when I heard about that, I thought that they are going to just re-record those songs as quickly as possible without any care for the details, but I was wrong. They actually have re-recorded those songs with great care if you are a casual fan, if you are a casual listener, because a long-time fan like me clearly hear those differences. And for example, when I listen to Heaven's on Fire here, I immediately heard the drums on the intro being played differently. Didn't like those. And yeah, because I know those old versions, I know them inside and out. Am I ever going to listen to these? No, I'm never going to listen to those versions anymore. The only interest to me in these songs here is Hotter Than Hell. When I bought the album Hotter Than Hell, I loved it. I have always loved it, never had a problem. But I know that some people think that the sound of the album is poor, that it sounds thin. So I even remember somebody commenting that if those songs would be recorded properly, it would be like a different album. So if you listen to Hotter Than Hell here, you get the sound and feel of like a proper heavy metal production. So that's the only point of interest here. But yeah, I'm never going to listen to that classics again. I just have no need for it. One thing I forgot to say about concerning Symphony is I recommend you to watch it from the video. You get much more out of it having full visuals with the songs, so you get much more out of the orchestra by listening to this DVD. Okay, next album was Monster. Again, when this was released, I listened to it. I didn't like it. But I wasn't worried. I had learned to love Sonic Boom. I thought that I'm going to learn to love this one too. But now it's 8 years later and I still don't like this. The good thing about this album is that I think that this is an album for the Spotify age. If you listen to one song today, next song next week, and next song the following week, I think this could be a good album, because when I was listening to this, I thought that now that's a good solid heavy metal song. Next song came up, that's a good solid heavy metal song. Next song, that's a good solid heavy metal song. But when the album came to the end and I started looking at it, I couldn't really remember anything at all about this album. The only thing was like All for the Love of Rock and Roll, which I believe is sung by Eric Singer. That's the only song that is like a bit different, but it's also the worst song on the album. And then there's Out of This World, which was written by Tommy Thayer, and I believe it's also sung by him. It's a bit different, but all of the rest of the songs are like the same. They have concentrated on making good, solid heavy metal song, but forgotten to write the song. I couldn't really remember like much or anything about the songs themselves. I place this at the bottom of the list, number 14. Then the next album, I believe, was released in 2014. This is Alive, the Millennium Concert, which was originally supposed to have been released as Alive number 4, but the whole project was shelved and released in 2014. When I bought this, I listened to it twice, didn't like it. I thought that that's going to stand in my collection. I'm never going to listen to it again. Had it not been for this video, I probably never would have. And I'm glad that I did, because it was better than what I remembered. Clearly it's not my favorite Alive album, but I like this. I thought it was better than what I remembered. But again, it could have been better. I understand why it was shelved. It's not like a top performance, but still, like I said, better than what I remembered, because I was certain that this would have been second to last, but instead I placed this at number 11. After which we are left with Kiss Rocks Vegas. When this one was released, I was actually in frame of mind that I'm never going to even buy this album. Like, why do I need this album? But I was going to Las Vegas later that year, so I thought I would buy it from there. I didn't find it from there, so I ended up buying from here. I have listened to this twice before this, and I thought it was good. Listening to it now, I thought it was, good one, until the album ended and I was left feeling a bit empty. And I was wondering, like, why do I feel this empty? Why didn't I enjoy it after all? And I think it was because it's in such high level of professionality. Their playing is so tight, just so good. And I think that Kiss shouldn't be like that. Kiss should have a level of bashing it and then a level of professionality. And here they have level of professionality, but not bashing it. Again, a really big surprise to me was that my favorite here was Lick It Up. Looking at the track list, I would have expected it to be bottom of the list, but instead it was my favorite. It wasn't so much the verses, it was the extending of it when they started the interplay between the guys. I thought it was brilliant. But just because I couldn't really enjoy the feeling here, it came up at number 13. Which concludes this, except that I'm going to add one more thing to it, and this is compilation Smashes, Thrashes and Hits, released in 1988. I didn't buy this then, I bought this in 2013. Let's start with the less awful side of this, which is Love Gun. To me, Love Gun is like a Ramones song. It's everything excess has been cut off. It's tight package, brilliant as it is. But here they have extended the song, which, it's not anymore like a really tight package anymore. I don't appreciate this. Then there's Beth with Eric Carr vocal. if I had bought this album back in 1988, I would have been appreciative of it, thinking, okay, now we have Eric Carr's vocal on record. But since Eric is singing on Hot in the Shade and Little Caesar, after that, this is pointless. There's just no use for it. He copies Peter's vocal, but having known Peter's version for all my life, what do I do with a copy of it? A second-rate copy of it. Peter's voice is Peter's voice, Eric's voice is Eric's voice. I'm never going to listen to that, am I? I love Peter's version. What do I do with this? Nothing. And now we come to the worst offenders here. I Love It Loud. What is the most obvious character of the song I Love It Loud? It's those massive pounding drums. Dum dum dum. And what have they done it to here? They have mixed the drums down. Now you have pat 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 boom. Just idiotic. Stupid idiotic decision. And that's not the worst. Then there's two new songs. First one is Let's Put the X in Sex. And back in 1988 I bought that as a single and I thought it was awful. Didn't like it at all. I tried listening to it. I tried to like it. I tried to convince myself that it's a good song, but I couldn't. And I remember that moment. It was yet again that I had that 5 minutes before I had to leave somewhere. And I said it out loud to my brother that let's listen to it one more time. It can't be that bad. My brother calmly said, yes, it can. And that was the moment when my fandom died. I realized that he was right. It really is that bad song. It's awful. And it goes even worse than that. There's another new song, You Make Me Rock Hard, which is it's awful beyond awful. It's crap beyond crap. Like it's so bad that you cannot write that bad song by accident. You have to design yourself to write the worst song of the worst song of all time, and then make it even worse than that. It's crap beyond crap. I'm never ever going to listen to this album again. I didn't listen to it now. Just avoid this album at all costs. The only reason to have this is to have it sit on a shelf. Awful. Yeah, okay. It's beyond half an hour mark now. So thank you to all of those who have watched this. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Bye.